And if you notice, it has been a shift. It has been a shift because a lot has happened since the last time we really connected together. And we are yet still excited. And we believe, you know, according to the Word of God, Romans 8:28, all things.
All things.
It's going to work out for the good. So thank everyone for tuning in today.
Absolutely.
We thank you all. Even though it's a shift, welcome. Even though it's a shift, once again, we have to learn how to keep moving with the shift.
Absolutely.
We do. And our job is to empower, inspire, and motivate. And that's what we want to do today. And so we're really excited about tonight's show. Are you excited about tonight's show? I'm really excited because I believe that this information that we're getting ready to release and really talk about it is going to bring forth some type of change.
Absolutely.
Amen. So we are seeking for a change.
Big change.
Are we seeking for a change?
Yes, we are.
We're seeking for a change.
Yes, we are.
Today we want to talk about, as well as to plead our concern about the latest community and nation scare that we just experienced. And we want to talk about the mass shooting, and it's a very delicate and very sensitive subject. But I felt really pressed in my spirit for us to bring forth some type of awakening. Because I believe unless we talk about it, then things won't be able to shift and change in our favor. And right now, we have to learn how to get ourselves out the way.
That's right.
And that's what we want to do. We want to get ourselves out the way, and we want God to have His way. And we want Him to bring forth a manifestation of a shift, of a change. So we got to get out the way, and we got to do what God has called us to do. And so we welcome some educators today that we have asked to be a part of our panel today, our sisters in our organization. I want you to welcome our awesome sisters in the organization. They're educators and former teachers as well. Help me just welcome Sister Stacy today. Help me welcome also Sister Tawana today. Sister Stacy is currently a teacher, and I thought that was really, exciting to bring her on because we want to hear the voices of a teacher.
Absolutely.
And we also want to talk about, just a voice of a former educator, once in a classroom, but work for the district now, but yet still have a voice because it's a very important position because you're more in that administration, making decision, if you will, position. And so you kind of hear it all. And so we want to hear from you as well. And not to mention our vice president.
Oh, wow.
Let's welcome her along as well.
Always.
And, before we get even deep, we want to really acknowledge the 17 families that was truly affected by this.
Absolutely.
I like to say this senseless.
Yes, that's the word I've been using.
That took place, and we want to be able to just, bow our heads and just
have a moment of silence,
a moment of prayer, and lift up Stoneman Douglas High School and everyone that was affected, especially the 17 families that was affected in this senseless tragedy. Let us pray.
Let us hold hands while we do.
Let us pray. Thank you.
Yes, Father.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Jesus.
Father, we honor you tonight, and we thank you, God,
Hallelujah,
and we lift up,
thank you, Lord
hallelujah,
Jesus.
the 17 families
Lord,
before you today, God. We ask you that you bring forth peace,
thank you, Jesus.
Hallelujah, restore joy in their life, in the name of Jesus, God. We ask you, God, even according to your word, God, hallelujah, no weapons will form against their mindset will prosper. So we ask you, Lord, to give them an empowerment of your love. Hallelujah. Shield your arm of protection around them in these perilous times. And God, we ask you to place a covering around the school, each and every one of the students, teachers, faculty, staff that was affected by this tragedy, God. We ask you to give them a rest and give them peace. And Lord, help this community, this world, this nation to come in perfect alignment with your love. So ask you, Lord, to shield your protection of your love around each and every one of them. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Thank you so much. So we want to really just plead our case. My main concern I really want to dig into tonight is I want to talk about prayer in type of school because we know there's a lot going on. Me as a former teacher, I know. a lot has transitioned. Even me being in the classroom and having that experience in the classroom, Stacy, even leaving out the door, I felt that shift. You know, coming into the school system over 17, 18 years ago, I felt the shift.
Yes.
You know, safety should be number one.
Yes, it should.
Yes.
Safety should be number
That's right.
one.
Yes.
Before and beyond anything, we should make, you know, our children should be in a safe environment, and our teachers.
Yes.
You know, because they come there to impart and educate and to teach. And it's like that's taken away from them because they're no longer in a safe environment. And now as a community, we have to get together and we need to make a voice.
Yes.
Someone really needs to hear us. So
That's
Stacey,
right.
I really want to hear from you as an educator, because I want to know, how does that feel now, even going inside the classroom now, after everything has transpired? How does that feel as an educator?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know that's big. I know.
I have so much to say, and I wrote it down, if you don't mind, so I can,
Please.
you know, be clear. But I looked up authority versus power. And it says that authority comes from duties and responsibilities delegated to a position holder. For example, a principal has authority to suspend a student. In my opinion, I think the discipline matrix under which they operate is very watered down. And a lot of times we ask, what are the administrators doing? But their hands are tied.
Right.
There's so many steps that they have to take in order to give those consequences. So their authority is very limited. So that's what's happening. But then power comes from a possession of knowledge. A person with that knowledge is able to use it directly or indirectly to influence the actions of others. So this is independent of what position we have. So power reinforces authority.
Oh, that's good.
Wow.
So we need to stop playing the blame game and putting band-aids on serious issues. The reason why we're experiencing these things is that knowledge, which is power, is outsmarting authority. So they're finding loopholes around the laws. They're finding loopholes around lockdown procedures. And the power of knowledge is being falsely demonstrated by darkness.
Wow.
So, but the body of Christ has a double dose. We have not only power, but we have received the authority from God to exercise that power.
That's cool.
So this is the power of light, which trumps all power and authority. And we have the power as Christians to intercede and handle things in the spirit realm before it even manifests. We need more intercessors in our schools who promote peace. That's the blue that we're wearing. But also I'm sorry.
That's good.
So much. I'm just trying to make sure I stay on point. But also can exercise war.
Yes.
It's the black.
Yes.
War in the spirit, so that we can go into the spirit and block whatever is trying to come against our youth. And a law, although useful, only gives us permission or authority. But as Christians, we don't have to wait until a law is passed to exercise their power and authority. When we become unified, we will have the utmost power. It's time to put the fragments together to create a force that cannot be reckoned with. So personally, I just feel taking that prayer out of schools, you have taken away that power. And we need to put that power back that can trump anything. We don't have to wait until a law is passed. We don't have to wait until doors are now changed for special locks. We don't have to wait for even the police, but we can go in the spirit realm and take care of what we need to take care of to protect our children, because that's going to supersede anything that even the president can come out with. And just to back that up, it says Luke 10:19, behold, I've given you authority and power. So as Christians, we have both. We're in a whole nother realm to trample on serpents and scorpions and physical and mental strength and ability over all the power that the enemy possesses, and nothing shall in any way harm you. So even over mental health, we have that power. And by taking that away from us, and now teachers who proclaim the name of Christ are afraid to pray and are afraid to let that be known to save a child or save another teacher, I think we're at a great disservice in our education system.
That was great.
Stacey mentioned something I thought that was really interesting. First of all, we're going to back it up a little bit. And I don't know if you caught this, and you may have. She mentioned unity. So before you talked about the power and the authority, you said something key. You said unity. There is a broken system when it comes to us, even as educators. We talk about unity from the administration all the way down, filtering from, the teachers to the students and to the rest of the staff. So the unity piece is very important. So in order for us to walk in this authority and this power so that we can get the results that we're looking for, we must come together as a body of Christ. And I think that is the key that's missing. So there is no authority, there is no power because the unity is not there. And God truly can't move unless we get on one accord. Does that make sense? And be able to make this one sound so that we can break that spirit of fear that's trying to handicap us from coming into a system that God made. Because honestly, how can you take God out of a system that he made? But God is the school system. God is the government system, if you will. So it's like, and I love what you said. You mentioned unity and then you mentioned fear, Stacey. There should be no fear to pray. Because honestly, I'm just going to put it on out there. I created a prayer room in my classroom. There was no one on that campus that took my authority and my rights away from me to pray.
And I think we still have some bold teachers that, against all odds, will do that. They will take the initiative to do that. They don't wait for the school system to say, okay, you have approval. It's done, I don't want to say in secrecy, but it's something that is done because there's a bold spirit, because you understand that you're operating under the authority of God.
Absolutely.
And as Stacey mentioned, and as you just mentioned, we talk about unity, we talk about being on one accord, and I concur 100%. Nothing can move and nothing can really be successful if it's not on one accord. God can't move it if it's not on one accord.
Absolutely.
But what divides, what causes the division is the fear. But we know that God didn't give us the spirit of fear and the power of fear, right? But of love, power, and a sound mind. The enemy gives that spirit of fear because we know there's one thing that the enemy comes against. And what is it? We can say it all together. Unity. The enemy does not like unity, whether unity in a family, whether it's in a corporation, no matter what, he fights against it. Why? Because there's strength in numbers. If he can get you out on your own on an island, that's how he can destroy you. So the school system has come up under and being ostracized, but it's up under the power of the enemy. That's why prayer was removed from the schools in 1963. But I agree, nothing is going to change, and you said it when we spoke earlier today, until we put it back. But how can you remove prayer and prayers of God? And God created, and God is the school system.
He is the government.
How can you take prayer out? Because it belongs to you.
Absolutely. I think you were going to mention something.
Well, I just wanted to talk one thing that Stacey and I were talking about is just the sense of family and unity, but then also getting women, because when you look at the majority of what the school system is made of, it's more women that work in the school system than men. So it goes back to what SES and we women everywhere stand for, is getting the women, the educators, knowing what their rightful place in the kingdom is, understanding their power, understanding what God has placed in them, understanding their calling and their purpose, then knowing how powerful their prayer and unity all ties in together into breaking those chains, those bonds, and then identifying the spirits, because that's what Stacey said. When you look at, like, what I do is work with students with special needs, most of that stuff is just spiritual. It's all spiritual. When they start having meltdowns and all those things, it's all spiritual. And then I sit to myself and I say, I can identify what spirit that is. But then when we really look at our kids and then look at the history of the things that they go through and identify with the spirits, then we can break some roots and some chains and move forward.
That's interesting, because I'm also certified in ESC. So I taught ESC in the school system as well. So interesting enough when she said that, we're talking about the roots of just a spiritual issue that's going on there. And it can be awakened from prayer. Meaning broken.
Yes.
Okay, so things can be broken from prayer. And I remember my classroom when my kids would act a little abruptly or in a situation where they seemed like they couldn't get a balance, I would begin to pray. So I thought that was very interesting. And whenever I pray, it would bring a calmness in the classroom. And a dimension of peace in a classroom. Much more positive results than yelling or screaming.
That's right.
But just a simple peace, or even with my music, I will put my music on, and it lays this foundation because kids know. Kids know, and I love it because now you talked about the mental illness part, because there are a lot of kids that are coming into our system with mental issues, and we have nothing set up for our children, and that concerns me. And what really concerns me, and I think Stacy, both of you all would kind of tap on this to me and give me some feedback on, why are we more concerned about test scores than we are about emotional and mental illness? I just had to go and put it together because we spend so much of time, because can I be real? That's what ran me out the system. What ran me out the system is the fact that when my daughter went through that experience.
With losing her dad.
She emotionally was traumatized. Emotionally. And they were so adamant about her test scores. And it's time for back testing and come on in, and what's the problem? Even had one teacher tell her, come on, get over it. It's like, get over it. Exactly. I'm serious. Get over it. Come on. You know. And not to stop to deal with, we're dealing with a student with some emotional, issues going on because she just took a very huge loss. There's no systems in place. And put it like this, we don't have enough systems in place. That we focus more on a test score than we do with the children, where they are emotionally and where they are in their and where they are physically, and that bothers me. And so, Stacy, what's your input on that? Because I know you're doing a lot of studies, and right now because you're working your doctorate degree, and I love to tap around Stacy because she does a lot of studying on terms of a lot of different things for the mindset and things like that. So what's your perception of that?
It's so funny you said that, because I actually told someone after the incident at Stoneman Douglas, I said those teachers are still going to be held accountable after 17 deaths for those test scores. What kind of system is that? They're still going to have to take the FSA and the stuff that they need to take. School is going to start back on Tuesday, I believe. What kind of system is that? That the teacher is going to be still held accountable after 17 deaths.
Okay, let's go deeper. Not only, can I ask you a question? Not only the teachers, but are the children held accountable? That's what the concern is. So now the children are still held accountable because we don't have anything in place.
That's right.
To deal with that major tragedy that just took place.
Can I say this? It not just ends with Stoneman Douglas. Like I was telling one of my colleagues, it's like a tree. This tree branches out and reaches the masses in Broward County, in Miami-Dade, and Palm Beach, because if you start at the 17, you still have people that are hospitalized, one critical, and then you extend to that. Those children had siblings. Those siblings had siblings, nieces and nephews. So it's like the whole county, the whole state of Florida has been impacted. And what really are we doing to branch out just past Stoneman Douglas? Because, when the kids went back to school, I felt like, yes, they set up those grief counselors and so forth for, that area. It wasn't enough. It was too much. It was too much for me. It was too much for other people. I talked to one colleague, and she said that at another school, the teachers were silent. We weren't equipped to go back to school and embrace the kids. Or, those who did not know the power of prayer. They weren't equipped to really embrace and comfort and move forward. It was just, not really having enough support.
It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm. You can't put a Band-Aid on a bone that's broken. You have to go deeper than that. The treatment has to be more severe because the treatment needs to match, the injury. And it's funny that we talk about the schools, but we deal with the same thing. Like myself, I'm in corporate America. And I can think back to, being a VP of a bank, and there have been several instances where I've been involved, either myself or my branches, in robberies. And people will come in with weapons, and they will rob, and the staff is left traumatized. Everything shuts down. Everything shuts down. Grief counselors are brought in. As the VP, it's hands off any one of my employees that have been traumatized and they need that grief. There's no timetable on how long to give them. We are there to support and give them what they need. This is corporate America. We can't do that for our children in schools. When we talk about, the kids, and when we talk about that, and statistics state that 1 out of 5 children have mental illnesses in school. And 1 out of 5 teenagers deal with mental disorders. And the school system is not doing anything adequately to help them. Those are huge statistics.
And I don't think we're talking about short term.
No.
We're dealing with long term.
Absolutely.
And that's that accountability piece that we're talking about. Long term. Why should they be responsible?
Right.
Because, and I didn't think about the extension of who's affected from this mass tragedy. Never thought about that. And it's interesting enough, Emma made a comment and she said, she texted me and she didn't want to go to school on Friday. It was too much. It was overwhelming, and then it was too much. And she said, Thursday was okay, but when Friday came, she said, Mom, she went to school. It happened on Wednesday, correct?
Yes.
Thursday in school.
They were on, well, most schools were on code.
On code. It was totally different, so everyone is affected from this. So she went to school on Thursday, but after she got a swallow Thursday, Friday, it was too much. I just don't want to go. She texted me, and she texted me this when she was at the gym. I thought school was a safe place.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting. What happened to school being a safe place now? Because school is not a safe place anymore.
Yeah.
And how do you feel to walk back into a school system when the safety precautions should be there, but it's not there? And not only it's gone, when I think about it, Elder Carol, it was never implemented. If someone can walk directly into a school and conduct this type of act and get away with it because it happened, where is the safety precautions in this school? That's what concerns me. They're actually, do they have something in place that they can assure? And I think you mentioned earlier, and we talked about, having more safety precautions placed in place. Absolutely. And what are some of the things that you think that they could do to make things better?
Well, when I think about it, and as soon as this happened, the same thing with me. I mean, everybody's paralyzed. And one of my bullets that I had was, where's the safety for our children? When we can no longer send them to school without being shot and killed, what is that saying? Mm-hmm. And when I pondered that and when I thought about that, the first thing I thought about was the airport. When people travel, there are precautions that are put in place for the safety of people traveling, right?
Absolutely.
When you go into the courthouse, there are precautions that are put in place so that our officials, tell the truth, because it ain't about us going in there. Right. It's about the judges and the lawyers, because of the officials not being hurt. It's put in place, absolutely, because of the type of job. And what are we talking about? We're talking about metal detectors. When we think about that, it sounds scary, but still, we've got to be proactive and we got to stop being reactive. Yes. As a country and as a nation, we are always behind the 8 ball. We are reacting to trauma. We are reacting to tragedy. Well, what about being proactive and preventing it? What about metal detectors being in schools? Because I guarantee you, if there was a metal detector in Stoneman Douglas, guess what? He would not have gotten past them because the weapon would have been detected. So we got to take our heads out of the sand and stop saying, well, I don't want. I remember some schools in New York and in other places they do. But they fight them, even the parents. Oh, I don't want my child going to school with this metal detectors. I mean, this isn't a war zone. Hey, listen, parents, take your head out of the sand. Right. This is where we are. Do you prefer your child to go to school and have a metal detector, have an officer there to see that they are safe? Or would you rather having a phone call that's your worst nightmare you receive because you sent your child to school to get educated. We've got to stop burying our head in the sand.
Absolutely.
We've got to understand this is happening whether we like it or not. And you hit it. What do we have in place to prevent it from happening?
That's it.
Can I say, and it goes back to unity.
Yes.
Because I can tell you as an educator, the fire department and the police department are not unified.
Wow.
So the police department wants to put certain things in place, but the fire department is coming against it. For example, there's certain doors. A lot of classrooms may have, let's say, Tawana and I are next door. There might be an adjoining door that's not locked.
Absolutely.
So even though I locked the kids in my room, they could have gone through her room next to mine.
Okay, gotcha.
But the fire code says we can't lock that door.
Wow.
Interesting. So that's where the breakdown is. And the police and the fire department are always at odds. Fire department wants the doors not covered. The police department wants the doors uncovered. It's an imbalance.
It's an imbalance, and it's interesting, but these still are things that are fixable.
Right.
These are the things that we're talking about.
And then when do we get on one accord?
When do we get on one accord?
When do we stop making about the fire
When do
department
we make
and
the children's
department?
lives valuable enough to put in the work? Come on, adults, roll up your sleeves, officials.
Right.
Put in the work for these children so that they can go to school and be comfortable. I don't blame Amber. Because guess what?
Yeah.
You never know when it may happen at your school.
Absolutely.
Right.
Because realistically, the reality is that it can happen. Now there's a spirit of fear that's being placed on these children that watch this now. I guarantee you there are children that are going to start having anxiety attacks just because they have to go to school. Hyperventilating when that alarm goes off or mom comes in the room and says, okay, it's time to go to school. Their hearts are going to start palpitating.
It's already happening now.
Exactly.
It's already happening now.
Because of the fear.
It's either a metal detector or, in some cases, some districts are allowing their teachers to carry guns.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's powerful. Let's talk about that a little bit. Yeah.
It's
powerful. Yeah.
You make it
powerful. It's like drastic signs take drastic measures.
Absolutely.
It may seem drastic. And when I heard that, I had a wow moment. When you think about this being happening, because I think it's in Texas that they started to allow it, correct?
Schools,
and some schools that they're allowing the staff and the teachers to carry weapons.
Right, and I think that's powerful because most schools either have one resource officer or they share it amongst another school, and there's only so much that one person can do, and by the time his colleagues come, there has been some damage. Let's just be realistic. There has been some damage, and I think also it's important that they look at that.
Right.
They look at the need.
Right.
Whether the schools are in a rich area or a poor area or whatever the case is, every school needs some point of safety. And on top of that, where the officer's office is. Not behind the cafeteria isn't going to do.
Right.
Not way back in another office or a classroom that makes it comfortable.
Right.
That's not going to do.
Absolutely.
It should be right at the front door.
And it should be all schools. Because when you statistics or when you put and start stereotyping, because like you said, I know in New York and in some other areas in other states, in rural communities, they have this. But look at this school. It was not in a rural community. Yeah. This is in Parkland. Come on. Right? I remember you lived in Parkland for a short time. And we all know Parkland. And people that were sitting on Facebook and on the news, they saw pictures of the area when they caught the person that did it. I mean, you could look at the yards and at the homes and tell what time, because this was a mile from the school. Absolutely. So we can't look at the area. We need to put this in all schools because this can happen at any given time. But if we are not on one accord, and if we don't value the life of our children, it's never going to happen. If we don't bring prayer back in school, because I agree, prayer can change anything.
Absolutely.
And I love what you ladies said about even dealing with the kids that you have dealt with and having, mental illness or having disabilities. And when you would see certain things manifest or when they become unbalanced, and you would pray and it would bring a calmness over that classroom. We've got to understand, and I know that because I've been in your classroom, and I've seen this for myself when I visited your class, and I've seen that. So it's true. This is the power of prayer, but this is the power that we are electing to remove, and we wonder why we have things like this that's happening.
And unless we develop a voice,
yes,
and realize that we have a voice that can bring forth change, change will never come.
Yeah. But how do we do that? How do we? And we've got the educators, and all three of you, past and present educators, so how do we in the community? I've never been an educator, but I'm a mom. Absolutely. I'm a grandmother. Right. So it really doesn't matter. I'm still right up front when it comes to the school system. So how do we have a voice? What do we need to tell the people out there? Where do we start with our voices? Who do we speak with?
I think we're starting right now.
Yeah.
I think we're starting right now about creating a open forum to say, hey, this is an issue. And once again, Stacey, what you mentioned, coming out of fear. Yeah. Let's talk about it. Not being afraid to mention that word. Prayer in the school system is a good thing, and we really need it back. And if whatever you have going on, if it's working for you, then listen, our voice don't even matter. But what's happening is not working. Change must come.
Right.
I think, and also empowering our children
Absolutely.
to not be fearful, to not, be afraid to speak up. I think a few years back there was this big movement where the kids were okay and they felt empowered to talk about their religion. They felt okay to pray at the lunch table and so forth, but then it dwindled down. So I think then goes back to being consistent, and empowering our kids to pray. Pray before you get into that classroom. I pray with my kids before I drop them off, and then empower them to tell them, don't be afraid to sit down at your desk and pray. Not just when it's testing time, but on a continual basis.
And you said it, and Adult High School, and that's one of our schools right in our district, did something so powerful the other day. They did that. Their voice was heard.
Yes, it was.
They stepped out on faith despite what the district
says they could
rules were.
That's right.
They stepped out, and not only that, I thought it was so powerful, they put it on live.
Yeah.
And what I saw was unity. Yeah. Okay? Enough of the fighting, enough of the dysfunction, enough of the, all of the different things that we have, the division within the children, but I saw unity. I don't know if you all saw that. It was on live. It was powerful. I have to truly share it, but Dillard High School did that, and it was so powerful to me because what they did was they broke the barriers. Yeah. They broke the barriers, and they said, I have a voice of prayer, and we can get along. Right. We do have unity, and this is what happens when you place prayer back into a school. You form a word called unity. Awesome. And I'm tired and sick of tired and seeing the dysfunction, seeing the division, but being able to see the unity within the four walls of the school, I thought was very powerful. And I think that's a step that show and exemplify that if you think about it, God is not out in the school system. Yeah. Prayer is still in the school system. Yes. We just have to open up our mouth and release it,
be
and
bold
not
enough
be bold enough and not be bound by fear, because they exemplified that the other day, and I thought that was so powerful. And I'm gonna make sure that I share it with you all. And that's the things; those are the things I think that schools need to do. But I think the part that breaks my heart when I look at it on the other side is the fact that we have to wait
until something tragic
happens to come together with peace and unity. And this would be my recommendations to Dillard High School. You be that school. You be that school that's continue to uniform the power of prayer, continue to step out on faith and bring unity within. You may be that school to take it to the, to shift and take our district on that level that needs to be on. Continue that. Let's not wait till something happens.
And I believe that because even after that happened, and I did see that same prayer, and it actually did get launched nationwide, because after the prayer, the teacher, who was also a pastor that had something to do with it, if I'm not mistaken, he was asked to speak. Actually, CNN interviewed him after that, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So CNN is nationwide. Right. So like you said, it has placed them now. It has given them a platform that they're paying attention now, saying, hey, what was that that you guys did.
Yeah.
And it was positive.
And
so that's how that voice gets out there.
And if they didn't see anything, what they did see, they saw the power of unity come together.
Absolutely.
And they saw love. And I thought that was really powerful.
Absolutely.
And so that's the voice, Elder Carol. That's the things that we want. That's the first step. And to bring it on change is just breaking that yoke of prayer. And I love what Stacy said. We need more intercessors. But we need more intercessors to rise up. You understand? Rise up. Because guess what? Our children are intercessors. Right. I saw intercessors on live. They were praying. It wasn't the adults praying. The children were releasing prayer. And that's what we need. We need more intercessors to rise up, to walk in that authority that you're talking about. According to Luke 10:19, he's given us that power and authority. Guess what? We don't have the power and authority if we are bound by fear. And bound by a system that God is truly ruling. God is the government system. I always say that.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. That is the way that we begin to change, is by having conversations like this. But what I don't want to see happen is something that we've seen before. Unfortunately, we've been here before.
Right.
We've been here before. We were here with Sandy Hook, when the shooting with those babies, the elementary, and we've been here with the airport, we've been here, and we have, and Columbine, and guess what? And we have talks like this. But what happens is it dies down. So what we've got to do, we've got to talk like this. We got to bring awareness, but we can't stop. It can't be a hot topic. We've got to, more people have to have this type of passion. And it has to catch on like wildfire. And the talks have to continue even long after this has happened. That's the only way that we're going to bring about the change that we need.
And we didn't want to bring politics in this because it's not a politic issue. Right. But this is a kingdom concern.
Absolutely.
We want to bring the kingdom in because we want to bring forth changes.
Right.
Now, judgment, but changes.
Yes.
It's about an awakening.
Yes, absolutely.
And I do believe that sometimes things have to happen for things to be placed and put in place. So come time God to make a shift, to bring a better shift, and to bring something positive in the atmosphere. So we don't want to have this to be those lives were in vain. No, we want to be able to bring a positive change to show that 17 people, so their lives were taken but was not in vain. It saved 17 million children. And that's what we want to do. We want to do that, and that's why we're doing what we do. Is because we want to say, hey, listen, your voice matters. Your child matters to us. That teacher mattered to us that stood in front of that bullet and shielded those kids. That matters to us. Your families matter to us. And if we sit back and do nothing about it, that means their lives didn't matter. So their lives do matter to us. And we as a community, we want to get together and do something about it. So it's time for Kingdom to do something. I'm sick and tired of us sitting back, afraid to talk, afraid to pray, afraid to walk in our authority, afraid to pray. No, we have the power to bring forth change. So guess what? Intercessors, it's time for us to rise up and get in our position and stop walking in division and fear. And it's time for us to come together as kingdom and pray and break these dysfunctional chains of mental illness, depression, and oppression that's in the school system. Now, our voice matters. And it's time for us to change. It is truly time for us to change.
In the day after it happened, I was in prayer, and that's exactly what God placed. And I was in prayer that morning, and I was praying. I was thinking, I was weeping about the families and about the lost lives, the 17 lives that, as you said, were senselessly taken. And my prayer began to be, God, allow them to be seed. If we can have change, those lives won't be in vain. Let those lives be seed that will go down in the ground and spring up a harvest of change.
Absolutely.
And if that change comes, and if that change happens, then those lives would not have been for nothing. Those lives would have been a sacrifice for a better country. Absolutely. A sacrifice for kids to be able to go to school and to be safe. Absolutely. And that's the only way these parents can sleep at night, knowing, no, my child is no longer there. The coaches or the teachers know my spouse isn't. But from that life, look at the change. They were trailblazers. Look at the change that came from their lives. So we cannot allow this to be senseless. We can't allow it to be in vain. And it won't be if we bring forth the change that's needed.
Absolutely. It's time to do it. Listen, if I can say anything right now, I'll say, Sheriff Israel, do something.
Yes. Amen.
Do something.
Amen.
Don't sit back. We don't need to hear a voice.
Yeah.
We don't need to hear your voice. We need to see a change.
Amen.
There's an old saying that I often say, talk is real cheap.
That's right. Come on now.
But your movement will make a change.
That's right.
And so we don't have time to sit on this.
Yes.
It's personal for me.
Yes.
Because not only am I a mother, but guess what? I'm a former teacher.
That's right.
And that could have easily been my child.
That's right.
So I look at it like, guess what? That was Amber. That's the way I look at it. Because at the end of the day, we were only graced.
Yeah.
God only afforded us the opportunity to walk in this grace and mercy.
Yeah.
Mercy have kept our children here. Grace have kept us here. That's it. And it's unfortunately that we're now dealing with the fact that 17 families. 17 families. And it takes 17 families to lose their life for Sheriff Israel, Donald Trump to wake up.
Well,
and that's how I feel about it. It's time for leaders to wake up. Because you holding a lot of authority. And we're waiting for something to shift and change.
And
that's what we're waiting for.
We don't need you to be a talker. We need you to be a doer.
Absolutely.
Don't talk about it. Be about it. That's what we need. We need action behind your words. Because words that don't have actions are just that. They're words.
Absolutely.
And they won't bring change. But we need you to use like Stacy said, you have the power and you have the authority.
That's it.
Use it.
Use it.
Use it. And do something useful for these children. So that we won't have to stop. Because guess what? Pretty soon what's going to happen? All the schools going to shut down. Everybody's going to be homeschooling because nobody's going to want to send their children to school. So you really ain't going to get no money then because that's what it's all about is the money.
Absolutely.
It's all about the money, and we got to stop putting value on a dollar and put value on lives because that's where it belongs.
Absolutely. Put some programs in place.
Absolutely.
You all agree? We need to put some programs in place.
Yes.
And I feel in order to inspire more intercessors and more people on board for prayer, because they're not taking that seriously either when we say prayer. There's signs out there that saying we don't need any more prayer. It's because the prayer is coming afterwards as a reaction. And it's coming from the very people that didn't have anything in place. Everybody's saying prayers and thoughts to the families. Everybody's throwing that out there, whether they mean it or not.
Right.
Absolutely.
Who they're praying to, I don't know.
Yeah.
But we need more proactive praying. The proactive prayers who are the proactive prayers on that campus that say, I feel like something is going to happen today. You know what? Shut this down.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who can walk in the prophetic and see things before they happen.
Absolutely.
And then they'll take us seriously.
Absolutely.
I think doing it after the body of Christ needs to wake up with that as well, that we need to be sensitive. We need to be sensitive.
Absolutely.
And as teachers, we're so busy.
Yes.
We're so busy, but we need to pick up on stuff like this.
Once again, the responsibility that you all carry
is heavy.
My goodness.
Goes back to what you said. Where's the value? The value is placed on the test scores and not the children. And you really can't, is it the teachers that we blame or does it come higher up? The teachers are in fear too because guess what? If you're not producing the scores, you're going to lose your job.
Right.
So it's higher than the teachers.
Yes.
We got these people in authority walking, as Stacy said, you've got power, but you have the authority.
That's
right? And power is trumping the authority now. And it's shutting down the authority.
Absolutely. So
it's coming from a higher, and that's where the area that you are. Being an administrator and being in that office, those are where the decisions are made with the superintendent. And when these people are sitting in these offices, these are where the decisions are made that are trickling down to the teachers. The teachers are simply carrying out the orders that they're being told to carry out.
Yes.
Can I say this? We as in the body of Christ have the power and the authority. And why is it that in the church we feel safe to use our discernment, to use our gifts and our callings and our purpose?
Right.
When are we as educators, administrators, or whatever, Christians, going to use not the church as our platform, to use our gifts and our talents and our calling, but use the hallways and the schools? I've known administrators that during testing time,
right,
schools are closed. We call in that prayer intercessor. We walk down walls and put oil on the chairs and the doorknobs. But why can't we do that every day?
Safety, that's right.
Call those intercessors. Call those ones that you on Sunday morning are walking the pews. We walk those halls in the morning every day on the consistent. And that's what I'm looking for, is something to happen on a consistent, continual basis.
You know, she thought about that. I thought about study hall. You know, they have study hall for high schools, right? So isn't it powerful? They have study hall and they can incorporate a 30-minute session for elementary, middle, and high school, where they can call it. That can be the intercession time. That can be the prayer time. That can be the meditation time. I think every child throughout the day need that shutdown of meditation. Even if it's just to revisit, revamp, revise the mindset. You know, and then that's the time when the teachers get to connect with that issue that they may have in the classroom. And I think that should be mandated inside the curriculum. That we have that 30-minute or hour block, they call it a study hall. But what are the kids really doing in the study hall? Let's just be real. That's the time I'm just being real. Because, you know,
spitballs and stuff,
we have high school. I have high school students.
On their phones.
Former high school student. What do you do during study hall, Wes? You know what I mean? And so the majority of the time during study hall, they're flipping that cell phone.
Right.
They're talking to their friends. The teachers may be interacting with one another, or they may be utilizing that time to plan or test, grade papers. What happens if during that time they can form a 30-minute or hour just shut down meditation time for the student and the teacher to connect?
Yes, that's good.
And so that time when that teacher can connect with that one issue or that two issue that need that one-on-one, that could be that one-on-one time with the students. You know, and the other kids just sit and they have that time to meditate, reflect, and revisit some of the things that they did throughout the daytime. I think that's powerful. So these are type of things, and also thinking about systems that can be developed within the school system to help with those mental illness cases that we talked about a little bit, because they're real. It's happening.
Absolutely.
And if I'm not mistaken, the young man that performed this
heinous act. He was mentally ill.
Yes, this unbalanced, crazy act. He was mentally ill, but I heard that he lost his mom, and which is not an excuse. But maybe he just needed that, and then he was expelled from school. So it's a lot going on there. And so to sort of put him out into the community, danger into community, we're dealing with the fact that we're pushing mental illness right in the community. You know, and now the community has to suffer because of the fact that there was nothing within the system to help this child. You know, and those are the kind of things that I'm often thinking about. Those are the type of things I think that hierarchy need to really deal with. What are we doing in these type of cases?
Absolutely. And again, it goes back to, the mental illness is there. It's reality. But what are they doing in the schools to manage it? Absolutely. Like you said, what type of programs are there? Because you talk about, bipolar disorder, these different things. This stuff doesn't just hit adults. It hits children. Schizophrenic. I mean, all of these things. We have young people that are dealing with that. And they're in schools and they're mingling with everyone else. So when they start to act out, and teachers are so quick to just, either put them out of the class, expel them, you get out of my class. But is anybody trying to figure out what's going on?
It is interesting. We'll go back a little with our Girl Talk program. And I can think about when we worked and we did the summer program for our Girl Talk program. And it was time for our children to go back to school. You remember that, Stacy? Yeah. It was time for them to go back into the real world. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because we had created this kingdom environment for them, and they loved it. And it became their new world. Yeah. But their real world was going back into that school system that they dreaded. And I never forget, they cried. Do you remember that? They cried, and we couldn't. What is the problem? Okay, you have to go back to school. Please open up a school. Yeah. Please start a school. We don't want to go back there. Yeah. And one of the things I can recall one of the little girls saying is that we love it here because you give us a chance to talk. Yeah. Yeah. We get to express ourselves. Yes. We get to talk about things that we never, and this is what one of the girls said, that the teachers don't even want to hear about. Yeah. They don't have time. Because all of the time is geared towards test scores, promotion, school, academics, curriculum, and we're some type of way, we're losing the children in the midst of all that stuff. Yeah. We're losing the child, and we no longer deal with the wholeness. Yeah. We deal with the academic concern. That's it. Yeah. And so and it took me back there, Stace Carol, when we were there with the Girl Talk program, and that's one of the reasons why we push for our program like we do, because we are more concerned with where our children are emotionally
healthy. That's right.
That is more important to us than an academic level or where they are academically. Right. It doesn't matter where you are academically if you're emotionally unbalanced. That's right. It doesn't matter where you are academically if you are some type of way dealing with some type of mental illness. That's right. Because we're more concerned with where you are and your wholeness as a whole than as a part. And I think that's really important. I just want to mention that because I just felt that was really important. Yeah. And that's the reason why we run so hard. And those are the type of programs that need to be developed. More of those programs need to be developed and supported. Supported to see the outcome and the positive results that we're getting from working directly with the child.
And it's funny because even with our program, it was still a structured program.
Absolutely.
We still had a focus on academics. We still had a focus on them being managed, behaved, organized, but it was a balancing. Absolutely. Because their mental health was also important. So we cared about them holistically, everything. And because we did, the behaviors were good. And we had girls that when they first came to us, and the boys, for boys business and basketball, that they had issues. We saw these issues. They were difficult in the beginning, but when we showed that we cared and we weren't going to give up on them and we didn't expel anybody and we didn't put them out, we rolled up our sleeves. And guess what? Was it hard work for us sometimes? Yes, because we had to deal with some strong personalities, but because we did not break, we did not bend, and we did not throw out the baby with the bathwater. We showed them we cared, but we're going to be strong. Now, you're going to have to function in this environment. We want you to be here. What's going on?
It's interesting. Stacey, working in both environments, and you had the opportunity to work also with Girl Talk and also work directly with the educational system. What do you think the difference in the two systems?
Definitely the wholeness.
Absolutely.
As a matter of fact, one of my assignments that I had to do for the doctoral program was to kind of make up this policy that I would implement as an educator, and that was the policy that every school has to have a mentorship behavior modification program. Awesome. Because we can expel them according to that discipline matrix that they're under, because it's robotic, but he came back. So the problem was not solved. So even though you had to expel him because he was a danger, because they did have to do what they had to do, what is it that is out there that can modify and can adjust that behavior? So I think that all schools, whether it's on campus or off campus, because it might be dangerous to do it on campus if they're a danger, but that has to be a law where they can get that mentorship, they can talk to someone. I had a child in my class, they didn't do too well on the last I get the acronyms mixed up too. There's so many tests. And I'm a teacher of the BAS testing. He didn't do BSA. He didn't do very well on it. And a couple weeks later, and I noticed he was a well-behaved child. That's the worst position to be in because those are the ones that get overlooked. And it was a little bit different. And he handed me a flyer the next day because I kept on saying, Brandon, you're different. You're different. You're different. And he handed me a flyer that said that his sister was missing.
Wow. See?
So
there was a root.
There was a root. And it was me, and I kept on saying, I didn't have the time to interview him, but just by me saying something's different about you. Teachers, you don't have to go into anything deep. And the child may open up to you. And so, I was able to at least tell the guidance notes or something. And, I try, I'm not perfect, but recess. Teachers, what do you do at recess? Sit. I actually try to pull that student that I don't have the time for. A lot of people manipulate the system. There's always a loophole, even with prayer. I can Google it and research it. I don't think the law doesn't say that you can't pray. It's the assembly and the forcing of everyone to pray. So if a child decides, you can't force it on them. So a child can take out their Bible. I can, so we need to be more educated.
That's good.
So they're taking prayer out of the school as a group, like as a curriculum, saying all you students, okay, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna have prayer time.
To do it.
I got you.
But I think it's important because that's the key in this evening show, today's show, is to come up with some type of plan and to help in any kind of way help preventing these children with these mental illness cases to escape out into the community to create another bomb.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love what you said, Stacey, because you're absolutely right. Creating that recess time, giving that one-on-one attention, but caring enough.
Yeah.
Caring enough as an educator, because I know the signs were there. I heard about it. The signs were there. The red flags were there. He had some issues going on, but caring enough. Because I had the tough kids in my classroom. I specialize in boys. So I had to walk real heavy. So the key was I had to get through to each and every one of my students, So I know they're all different, so you have to handle them different. Some kids need that one-on-one, but it's amazing enough to know that one word can change a life. It doesn't take a whole lot. It just takes a little bit of your time, because we don't want any other students to fall some type of way through the pipelines or the cracks of the system to get out in the community to create another bomb. That's not what we want. That's not what we want. So in the few minutes that we have left, what would you say out there, if you had a minute or two or something in your spirit to just release to help to prevent some of the things that has happened, what would you say?
I would say, one, educators, know your place in the kingdom.
Yes.
Identify with who God is, and tap into that source. Be able to come together as one and take time out and call on God. Take time out and reverence God. Take time out and pray for those that don't even know God. We have to know what our rightful place is and how powerful that is, because like the Bible says that one can put 10,000 a flight under. 1,000 things. It only takes one.
That's it.
And we can reach 1,000. So imagine if there was just one of us in each school, in each district administrative office, in each area office, and how we can reach the masses that way. So if we as Christians really stand up and take our rightful place in the kingdom, in the school system, how powerful that would be. And then just one other note is really as Christians and educators, sitting down and thinking about that plan, because I've been thinking about a plan and something to put in place for that the students that have the needs. There is something that we can do, because we're all smart and educated enough to come up with the plan, to come up with implementing Girl Talk and that mentorship and that piece that our kids need, not after school, but during school. We can make time for everything else. Putting extra recess in. Why can't we put an extra mentoring piece in into the education system?
That's awesome. Stacey, that's good.
I think we also need to identify a child the way how God identifies them. Children are different nowadays, and I know that there are children with mental health issues. It's warranted, it's valid at that particular moment in time. But I know there are a lot of students that have that label that should not have that label. It's because they were different, and we don't know what to do with them, and we stick them into this abnormal box. So now we told them that they have mental issues when they don't really have it. So it's important for us to unlock who God says that child is. They may be acting up in the classroom because the test is just not their thing. They might be an artist. We need to bring all that stuff back, the shop, the woodwork, everything, so we can they say we are to differentiate learning, but then they take a standardized test. It doesn't make sense to me. How can you differentiate but then standardize at the same time?
Wow.
So I just think that we really need to have these things in place where we can cater the classroom to what that child needs, and I'm more concerned about the ones in the mental health program that don't belong there and are, overworking the ESC teachers. They don't belong there. It's just that we haven't unlocked the gift that's on the inside of them. So that's just my thing with what the school system is.
Wow,
No,
that's powerful. That's powerful. Elder Carol. Wow.
Two great points. But, when I think about all of this, to kind of sum it up with me, and we brought out so many great points, and one of the biggest points is something that Stacy talked about, having programs when we do label or when we find these kids that have these issues, and we put them out of the school system, and they end up either coming back or they end up doing something in the community or whatever. When we think about it, think about this. And when I was sitting here, I just got a great revelation that when we break the law and when we have been labeled, as mischiefs in society, and when we go to prison or when we go to jail, when we're released, there's a program that sticks to us. We have a probation officer. There's a program that will follow us. We got to check in with this PO. This PO has to, they make sure that we are mentally stable, make sure that we are not on drugs, make sure we don't have weapons, to make sure that the time that we spent before they release us back into society, we have been rehabilitated. What are we doing in the school system to ensure that these children are being rehabilitated before we just push them off into the community or back into the schools? Again, where are we placing the value? Where are we putting our money? What are we saying as a society is important?
Wow. This is awesome. I'm telling you, the scripture that comes to my mind is Psalms 27:1. The Lord is our light and our salvation.
Yes.
Who shall we fear?
Yes.
That's right.
No one and nothing.
That's right.
I encourage everybody today, and I speak directly to the intercessors today. When you know who you are in God, don't fear, rise up.
Yes.
I speak to every child out there, every child that was affected by this heinous crime. I'm telling you, don't fear. Walk in that authority because there is a God on the inside of you.
That's right.
I speak directly to Sheriff Israel, all of the people that's in leadership position. Donald Trump, our president.
Right.
Listen, we need your help.
That's right.
We need for you to utilize the authority that God has given you. Walk in your righteousness of power and help us come in perfect alignment with the order of God.
Absolutely.
We need your help. We don't want any other families, being able to go through the turmoil that these families went through. So I strongly say to you, let's help us come together as a community, as a nation, so that we can walk in unity and love from the top all the way down. I thank each and every one of you all today for coming in and just connecting with us today. I pray that we have said something today to shake up this nation and to bring on change. Listen, our voice matters. As an educator, our voice matters. I speak even as a child in behalf of every child.
Your voice matters.
To sit back and allow any other families to go through. It's time for kingdom to reign and stand up for what's righteousness. God bless each and every one.